This is your host, Amanda Fowler, and you're listening to Just Mands The Podcast, the place where I empower you to be who you are, say what you want, and do what you dream. Here you'll find candid conversations surrounding the complexities of life, everything from womanhood, career, and self-growth to friendships, relationships, and opinions that feel a bit taboo. But I'm not just here to offer you tips and tricks to figuring it all out. Fuck that. I'm here to talk about it all, the shit that nobody wants to talk about, to air the laundry without it feeling dirty. Think of this as conversations with cool people and brain dumps that I decided to share with you instead of my journal. Because oversharing is kind of my love language, and if it's yours too, we'll get along just fine. What is up? Welcome to Just Mands The Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda, and it is wild to be sitting here. But it also feels really, really right. And if you came over from What's the Recipe, hi. I don't know if you are familiar with the OG Just Mands, but the reason that this feels right, sitting here on this couch, drinking a coffee, having a slow morning, is because this is my roots. This is where it all started. This is how I started sharing and how I really began my journey of sharing my life on the internet, I think. I had a blog in 2015, but I didn't really start to think about my passions as my purpose until I got on the mic. And so it feels really full circle sitting here right now. But if you are coming over from What's the Recipe, thank you so much for supporting us over there. And I'm sure you listened to the last episode of What's the Recipe where I explained why it was ending. So if you haven't listened to that episode and you're wondering why I stopped doing What's the Recipe, I'll kind of touch on it in this episode, but I dedicated an entire episode to that on What's the Recipe. So go listen to that and then you can come over here, because if you aren't new here, you are familiar with Just Mands, and it probably feels right for you as well, even though I do have new music, because I wanted to come back to this podcast to myself with the energy that I have now. And to just get right into it, Just Mands was originally a blog, like I mentioned, and I turned it into a podcast. And it was really my first passion project that I dedicated myself to, that I could see as a career, right? And because I had a baby at the time, Lennox was in my belly when I first started my podcast. And then when I ended Just Mands The Podcast after a year, he was almost 1. And so there were so many things about the podcast that I loved, but because I had a baby, it became this thing that I put pressure on to make money and to be a stream of income right away, that it kind of killed it for me. And I'll touch on my journey with that. It seems to be a reoccurring pattern for me where I put this pressure on my passion projects to make money because I'm a mom and that's a real need, right? I think for so long I was almost mad at myself for wanting to make money from the things that I was doing, because I didn't want to feel like there was just a monetary incentive. And why did I even want the money? Was it bad of me to want the money? Was it greedy of me to want money from the things that I'm doing? And I have come to realize since then, I've realized a lot of things. I feel like Kylie Jenner. It's just been the year of realizing things. But truthfully, it's been like 4 years of realizing things. But really, I learned that it's not, in fact, me being super money hungry. It's that I have a whole ass family and I have a certain lifestyle that I want to maintain for myself and provide for my kids. I have this real need to put food on the table. And again, my husband is fantastic and he's been doing that for us for the last 4 years, but it's not enough. In this economy, it's not enough for a family of 4 living in Denver in this economy. And so there has been a real need for me to make money. And if you didn't know, it's why I got a job. So recently I got a job working at I'm not going to say yet because I haven't started. And I don't say this in a way that feels like I'm trying to hide what I'm doing or I'm not confident in what I'm doing. I just don't want to start talking about it before I actually start. And it's going to happen soon, so don't worry. But I got a job and it's because I need to have that stability and that security of income without having that desperation bleed into my passion projects, because my passion projects are the things that I want to make my career, but it takes time, it takes consistency, it takes dedication, and it takes authenticity. And even though that word has been just dragged through the mud on the internet, it still holds a lot of value in my heart, because that is what I have been told is the reason that people like to follow my journey, is because I share my life with such honesty and vulnerability and authenticity. However, I know when I'm showing up with that authenticity versus when I'm not. And I want to say for the past, after I hit that year mark with Just Mands, I haven't really been showing up as my authentic self in all of my creative endeavors, because there's always been that main drive to make money from them. And so if you are kind of new to me and my journey, I'll just kind of explain all of the things that I have done for the last 4 years, because I think it's important in the context of why I'm coming back to this show. So I started Just Mands The Podcast in 2020, February. I found out I was pregnant, and I had been ruminating with this idea of starting a podcast for so long, probably a month. And when I found out that I was pregnant, I was like, it's go time. I have to start now, or I never will. And so I started, and it was the pandemic. I was able to quarantine with my parents until I was 8 months pregnant, and Lucas quarantined with us as well. And there really wasn't this need to make money, because I was privileged enough to have a roof over my head and have parents who were willing to support us during that time. So really, my entire podcast was just coming from this place of passion and want and creativity and inspiration. It wasn't about, I need to make this thing work so that I can make money for myself. And then when we got our own apartment, Lucas started working at a restaurant, and I was back in school to get my health coaching certificate. I've always been deeply passionate about holistic health and food as medicine and healing your body, mind, and soul from a place of whole body well-being. And so it just was natural for me to do that. Actually, I missed a step, because before I decided to get my holistic health coaching degree, I was getting my personal trainer certificate while I was also finishing up my last semester of college, while also pregnant. And when I got the personal trainer's certificate, I took the exam at like 8 months pregnant. Literally right after I passed and had my baby, I was like, I don't actually want to be a personal trainer. I was really into Orange Theory for the last year of college, and I thought that maybe I could do Orange Theory to make some money and also just build community and have a career outside of college and motherhood. But then I started loving being a mom and podcasting, and thankfully Lucas was able to provide for us enough to get by. So I was like, you know what? I don't want to do personal training. I want to go back to school for holistic health coaching. So I did, and it was beautiful. And while I was in school for that and doing the podcast, I was thinking to myself, what is a way that I can monetize without compromising my podcast? Because I didn't really want to put the pressure on my podcast, and I was feeling like podcasting wasn't really a platform that you could monetize without getting ads from brands, right? So then I was like, you know what? I'm craving community. I have a decent little community on my Instagram where I feel like they really align with the things that I value and are craving the things that I need. And I created a membership community. So I was charging, I don't even know, like $20-25. And I think I lessened the cost over time too, because I was just noticing people weren't wanting to pay, but they needed this thing, right? It was like a bunch of women post-grad and whatnot. I even had older women in there too, but it was really this thing. It was called The Pretty Naked. It was all about coming together over the fact that we all loved self-care, but we didn't want to compromise our social life. And it was kind of in this pandemic, post-pandemic world where everyone could only connect virtually. Like, we weren't burnt out of virtual connection yet. We were kind of in the thick of it. So I kind of capitalized on that, and I was doing these virtual events. So I'd have other women come in and do like a breath work session or a meditation or a Reiki session or a gut health workshop, a hormone health workshop. It was really rooted in curiosity and connection and learning and creativity. And I truthfully miss it so much, but I haven't found that it's the right time to bring a different iteration of that back. I definitely think I'm going to do something later on down the line that is similar to that and has the same feel, where we're doing things around curiosity and creativity, because I was actually just on a podcast yesterday, and as I was talking, I was missing connection in that way. I was talking about human connection and self-connection, and how they're so intertwined, and how self-connection is the foundation of human connection. And I feel like the Pretty Naked just so eloquently blended those two. And so it'll definitely make its appearance someday down the line. I don't know when, but it'll come back. And I know my girls listening to this who were in the Pretty Naked are understanding what I mean, because it was honestly just such a beautiful thing. And I didn't even know what I was creating at the time, but it was the best. But anyway, after I was doing that for a bit, I think I did that for a full year, I started to take on health coaching clients. And so I was doing health coaching, and then I decided I wanted to rename myself to like a mindset and wellness coach, because what I was doing mostly with the women transitioned from nutrition and fitness to mindset and belief systems and habits and whole body well-being. And so I was doing that for a bit. And again, throughout all of these things, it was really, the forefront was I'm so fulfilled by these things and I love helping other women, but also I need to make income because now I'm pregnant with my second kid and there needs to be these expenses that we're paying for. And I need to not, have all the pressure be on my husband because I also want to be able to provide. And I don't know if you've ever had a child or just like a real life expense, the pressure of needing to fulfill that need and some more. And so after I was coaching, maybe a year or two into coaching, I found myself really longing for podcasting again. And this was something that kind of came up over time. When I started the Pretty Naked, I transitioned the podcast into the Pretty Naked Podcast. So I still had that element, but it wasn't my main focus. And then while I was coaching, I was still posting some things on my podcast here and there, but it wasn't anything that I was making my full-time thing anymore. And then when I decided that I no longer wanted to coach full-time, I transitioned into doing a podcast with my husband called Accidental Parents. And I was still taking some clients then, but it was a little bit slower. I did a group program as well for coaching, which was just fabulous. It was like an online virtual course where it was maybe 4 to 6 weeks of just deep diving into ourselves and figuring out what it is that we actually wanted, and having these calls as well to talk and to connect and feel heard. And it was beautiful. And I was also doing Accidental Parents. Then I was like, you know what? I really don't want to coach. It's not making me feel fulfilled because, from the time that I was literally born into this world, I might as well have come out with a microphone. Like, I loved being center of attention and I loved having the spotlight on me. I loved sharing my voice and having people look at me, and I loved entertaining. Like, I just loved being on camera and entertaining. I have this little home video of me where I was like, hi, my name is Amanda DeMarco, and you're behind the scenes of the sweet life of Zach and Cody. Like, I made my best friend film me just like walking around my house. I would make music videos with my friends all the time where I was the lead. I remember there was a bunch of us, like family friends and neighborhood girls, where we made a music video to Allie and AJ, and my best friend and I were the lead in the music video. And all of the other neighborhood girls were like makeup girls, hair girls, the people who were filming, videographers. Like, they were our crew. And I was literally the lead. Like, I have just always loved that, and entertaining and creating and being the star of that creative project. And so that never went away. And while I loved coaching and kind of being behind the scenes in a way where I was, on a private Zoom call or a private session with clients, I really felt this need to be out on my social media, be on my stories, be on camera. And I didn't want to ignore that anymore because it was still there. And it was also me kind of coming off of this realization of, holy shit, everything that I've been doing for the last 3 years has been with the the intention to make money because I had to, but also, do I really need to right now? And Lucas was killing it in his job and at the time, and I was like, you know what? We're not in dire need of money right now. I'm just gonna pause. I'm gonna pause this. I'm gonna transition into doing social media, and I am going to start this new podcast with my husband that I really believe in and feel like could really take off. And so I did that. And this was in the fall of 2023. And it was magic. I loved it. I really felt in my flow. I really felt in alignment with where I was supposed to be. And then comes January 2024. And I was just told that this is the year in numerology of massive transformation and reaping the benefits and reaping the harvest that you sowed. And it really makes a lot of sense when I heard that, because January to June has been an actual shit show where I've been sick for so long and dealing with these chronic sinus infections and having a lot of moments where I was running into tension and these moments of resistance and things just kind of not working. Lucas and I were doing the podcast, but then it became this thing where Lucas is also in culinary school and he's so busy and he's got a 9 to 5. And anytime we would talk about the podcast, we would butt heads because we had different creative visions and things that we wanted to talk about. And, he's a guy and he's got these other ideas for conversations he wants to have, but then I have a following that has been growing and also been loyal for such a long time, where I talk openly about womanhood and motherhood and being in your 20s and women's health and female empowerment. And I wanted to bring that into What's the Recipe, but it wasn't jiving with our dynamic as two lead co-hosts. And so we got to a point where every time we were talking, we were arguing about the podcast, and it just wasn't good for our marriage. And it wasn't good for me as a human being, as an individual. And so I really sat with, what do I want to do? I got an astrology session. She was like, your south node is what you feel really comfortable doing, and your north node is what you are basically here to do. It's kind of like your fate or your purpose. And not everyone steps into that. People feel really comfortable on their south node. It's kind of also their shadows, but she was like, I like more talking about it in the way that this is something that you're really, really good at, but it's not necessarily a purpose. And so that for me is partnerships and building relationships. And I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense as to why I felt for so long that I need to be in a partnership or a relationship when it comes to my creative endeavors, like hosting a podcast with somebody instead of just hosting it by myself. And she's like, you feel really comfortable with that? You're really good at it. But I feel like if we go look at your north node, your truth and your purpose is to step into this place of authority in routines and health and empowerment. And I was like, you don't say. That makes a lot of sense for me. And so after that, I was like, well, maybe I'll just do What's the Recipe podcast by myself. Maybe I'll just take it and run with it as a solo act. And the more that I started doing that and kind of trying to figure out where I fit into the brand of What's the Recipe by myself, I realized that it's just not something that makes sense for me. I need to be creating in the context of myself, which is just Mands. It's not under the guise of What's the Recipe. And through that realization, I had another realization of, holy shit, not only have I for the last 3 years been creating and doing things out of the need to make money for my family and myself, but also I have been doing these things because I felt like me on my own as just Mands isn't worthy enough to create the success that I so have always for the longest time seen for myself. I had to do the Pretty Naked, or I had to have a coaching business, or I had to have Accidental Parents, or I had to have What's the Recipe, because Amanda Fowler, just Mands on her own, couldn't be possibly worthy of success. That really was what it was all about. And once I realized that, I kind of broke free from the fog that I feel like has been over me for the last 3 years of wow, I am actually not doing what I'm meant to be doing. And if I would have just stuck with Just Mands, the podcast, for the last 4 years, who knows where I would have been. But here's the thing. I don't kick myself for pivoting and trying out all of these different things and wearing all these different hats and doing all of these different desires and dreams and endeavors, because I would not be where I'm at right now. I would not have had the perspective that I have now. And I am coming to this podcast now with so much more vigor and zest and empowerment and confidence. Like I know that this is where I'm supposed to be, and it's where I've always been supposed to be, but I don't know if I would have been able to take this to the next level without all of the things that I tried in the last 3 years. So I feel like all of us probably will kick ourselves for pivoting and doing different things when maybe we should have just stuck with the thing that we were doing all along. But maybe we weren't supposed to at the time. And maybe all of the things that we have been doing the last 3 years gave us the wisdom and the knowledge that we needed to be able to take the original thing where we want it to go. And that's really how I feel, because if I did stick with Just Mands The Podcast in 2020 and just still have done it, I might have made it more of like an interview podcast and stuck with that, because that's really what it was. Is it was me doing solo episodes, yes, but it was really me interviewing other women and talking to them about whatever their expertise was. And that's not at all what I really want to do with this. I shared a little bit on my Instagram recently about how I don't ever want this. I mean like my page or like this podcast, my platform, right? I don't want any of my platforms to make anybody feel less than. I don't want my brand to make people feel like they are just left comparing themselves to what I have and picking out all of the things that they don't have because of it. I am very aware that people come to social media to compare their lives to other people, and they end up leaving feeling like they are not enough, or they're falling behind, or they need more. And I don't want to feed into that narrative. I want to create a space where we can talk openly and honestly and candidly about all of the complexities of navigating your 20s. And if you're not in your 20s, hi, you're also still welcome here, but navigating, figuring it all out while we are in this really weird place of society where we feel like we can't speak our mind, or we feel like we can't share our vulnerabilities. I feel like it's very much this show face kind of society that we live in, where we're showing the best parts of us while we're also like in credit card debt, you know? And I want to talk about that credit card debt. Like I want to be the one bringing it to light, because you know, whenever I do talk about it, I'm always met with compassion or relatability. Like the other day I went to my dad and I was like, Dad, we literally have $10,000 to our name. That's it. And I'm freaking out about it. And he's like, Amanda, that's what happens. Like everyone has been there. Everyone has been there. And it's nice to hear from somebody who is successful and money is not a problem for them anymore say like, yeah, that makes sense. Like to voice your concern to somebody and then have them meet you with nothing but compassion, like no concern in their eyes or their hearts at all, just makes the concern so much less of a burden or a heavy weight on my shoulders. And so that's kind of what I want to be for all of you listening. If you're listening and you're like, hey, I am a mom and I am struggling, I am too. There are days where I want to cry because I have to stick my kids in daycare to feel like a sane mother, and also to be able to work so that I can give them a life, and that I, beat myself up for not already having that financial security to give them and also be present with them. And I also have these days where I'm like, I love my children and I'm so proud of who I am. And I'm glad that I'm able to be a mom that shows them that they can do it all, right? They can work and they can be a present parent and they can, follow their dreams. But there are those days that I struggle. If you are in your post-grad era and you're hating your career and you're figuring out what you want to do next, but you feel lost, I have been there countless times in the last 4 years. And I think more than what it is it's all of these shoulds in our heads that are telling us, oh, well, we have to get a steady job and we have to have this, health insurance, this dental insurance. Like, why would we ever leave that? Why would we ever question it? But really, it's about self-connection, connecting with yourself and figuring out, hey, what are my passions? What are my deepest desires? And then how can I form my life around that? But it's a struggle, because a lot of us can't just like stop what we're doing and live our dreams immediately. Like, it doesn't work like that. And I want to be able to show you that I relate because, hey, I have so many dreams. I have so many things that I want to be doing, but I'm not there yet. My camera was like literally on low battery, so I wanted to change it really quick. But I was saying that I have a real problem with victim mentality. And I feel like it's very prevalent in our society today. And I don't mean to shame people who have a victim mentality, because it does come from a place of trauma. It comes from a place of, this is all I know, and I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop, because that's what's happened my entire life. And then also like this self-sabotaging nature, because we feel most comfortable in the place that we know, even if it is misery, and even if it does mean not achieving things and being successful. It's just what we know, and we feel comfortable there as human beings. But I feel like I have been lucky enough to see a lot of success in my life from my parents and the people that my parents surrounded themselves with. And that's been super inspiring to me and super motivating to me. And because I have seen that as evidence, I want to be able to share that with other people. I want to be able to be like, hey, I acknowledge how hard this is for you, and how hard the last few years have been for you, and how, your situation is not the most ideal. And I acknowledge all of the struggles and the hardships and the challenges. And you're not meant to stay here. And I think that's the difference between my platform and maybe the other ones that I've seen, is there's a real fine line between relatability and being stuck. Because I think a lot of people like to position themselves as like, oh, I'm relatable. I have not a lot. And then you almost kind of pigeonhole yourself into this place of relatability from not having a lot, or like not being successful. And then you get success from that relatability. And then that's when you find people who are, huge now, but they lost a lot of their following, because their following feels like they can no longer relate to them, because maybe they've built their entire foundation on either the victim mentality or the situations, or the like relating to that in a way that's not, like, hey, I don't want to stay here for forever. And so that's kind of the line that I want to walk, is like, I want to feel like we can talk openly about the complexities of life. I want to feel like we can talk about our challenges and be open about where we're at. I also want you to know that that's not where I intend to stay, and I don't intend for you to stay there either. And I think if we can create a community around that, where we uplift each other and we hear each other, we hold each other, while still talking about our 5-year plans and dreaming up our lives, that we can really tap into something that's super beautiful, and we can all become the successful people that we're meant to be. And I think that's really why I wanted to start What's the Recipe, is because I'm so fascinated with how people become their most successful self. And success can really mean whatever it is to you, but I don't want to talk about success. So while I am fascinated by success, and that's kind of like a theme with my life, I'm so driven to become the most successful version of myself, I don't want to just talk about other people's successes, or the success that I see for myself, or the successes that I've had. I want to talk about the things that I am going through currently. I want to talk about the things that are behind closed doors. I want to really go there with you, because I feel like that's what's missing on social media these days, with me at least, with the things that I see, is I don't know that there's as much space to open up a conversation in a really non-judgmental way anymore, because everyone is so scared to say the things that are on their mind. I have been around countless creators who are so scared to even share like the authentic and real emotions that they're going through, because of this image that they've built up, and then maybe the fear of getting canceled, which is just ridiculous. Ridiculous. And if there's something that I do not stand for, it's living your life for others. Like, I will never apologize for being who I am, ever, even if that means that you don't agree with me. And I think that that's what we've gotten so far away from, is like, let's openly discuss the things that are on our mind without feeling like they're going to get us in trouble, you know? And so that's really what I wanted to create with Just Mands The Podcast. And that's what I want you to get from this. You're going to hear a lot of conversations of me, maybe even just like verbally processing with you, or maybe me having conversations that I feel passionate about, but I feel like I'm not able to talk about because it's going to get me in trouble, or people are going to not like my opinion, or it's not going to be the opinion of the masses. And guess what? I was not born to be agreeable. You were not born to be agreeable. We are born to have all of these different parts of ourselves, and to have all of these different opinions, and be colorful and be bold and question things and stand by things, and have beliefs that were meant to crumble, and then have beliefs that we were meant to solidify. And I don't want to hide that. I want to be super vulnerable and open about these things, because that's how we grow as human beings. That's how we learn more about ourselves, and that's how we're able to step into our magic. That's how we're able to step into our success. And so you're going to hear episodes again of just me kind of, sharing what I would put in my journal with you guys. But then also you're going to hear me talk to people, to have conversations with people about maybe their stories, or things that they're going through, or conversations that are on their mind. And maybe you can learn a thing or two from them, or maybe you can just hear a genuine, honest, raw conversation with openness and with empathy. And then also I'm going to be doing my Should I Give a Fuck episodes on here. I started this new series, which I would have not started if I hadn't done all of the things that I've done since my original podcast in 2020, but it's called Should I Give a Fuck? And it kind of came out of this place where I was talking to Lucas about what's my niche, and when you're a creator, you get that. You are constantly thinking about, why are people following me? What content do they want to see? And why do people follow me? Meaning, like, what content are they coming back to see? And I was really struggling with that, because I don't really have a niche of like things that I talk about or things that I create about. Meaning, like, I don't just talk about like my protein rich foods. I don't just talk about my motherhood journey. I don't just talk about my relationship. I share all of it. And so I was like struggling one day, and he's like, Amanda, people follow you because you are unapologetically yourself, and you do not give a fuck about what other people think about you. That is why people follow you. Your confidence, your ability to just be yourself. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. And he's like, your Should I Give a Fuck series is so good because you don't apologize for the way that you think. And I think that so many people feel like they need to apologize for the way that they think. And I was like, okay, this is making a lot of sense to me. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start doing that on the podcast, where I just take episodes to just talk about whether you should give a fuck or not. So if you're unfamiliar with my series, it's basically where you guys write in about the situations and happenings in your life, and I tell you whether you should give a fuck about them or not. And I am really excited about them, because I think that when I am able to hear from you who is listening to this, it makes it more of a relationship versus me just like talking into a camera and a mic without feeling like there's real people on the other side. And we are able to build more of that community, because I am not in the business of creating because I want to just be recognized or famous or looked at. Like, don't get me wrong, I want to be those things. But more than that, if you peel a layer back, it's because I want to connect. I want to genuinely connect with people. I want to genuinely be able to look at somebody and be like, I get you. I see you. I've been there. And also, here's maybe some wisdom or like advice that I can share, or maybe just an insight that helps you get through it. Like, I just want to connect. And that's what I've said for so long, even just about my Instagram and my social media in general. But really, that's the gist. And I wanted this first episode back, to just kind of be like an episode where I explain where I've been for the last 4 years, like what I've been doing and what I've been wanting. But also because I just had my best friend out in Denver to visit, and we were just having so many conversations under the sun. We were going so surface to so deep, quoting movies that we love, to talking about our 5-year plan and, what's holding us back. And I think what I had an epiphany about is like, it's always been this. My podcast and me as a brand has always been my dream. I just didn't know if I could do it by myself. And now I know that I can. And so it's kind of this full circle moment where like I'm coming back to my roots. I'm coming back to myself. I'm coming back home to my dreams and actually being able to give them light from a place of authenticity and patience and understanding that this is not going to be an overnight thing. Like this is a long road that I have ahead of me. And I'm so excited about it. And I'm so content with it. Like I just want to be the most authentic version of myself so that maybe other people feel like they have the permission to do that as well. And so I really hope that you enjoyed this episode. I wanted to just, record it. I actually recorded the first episode a couple weeks back, but I have been thinking I wanted to re-record it because I just didn't feel like it was coming from a place of authenticity. It was like right after I had recorded the last episode of What's the Recipe, and Lucas was able to take the boys to school this morning and then also take Lennox to the gym with him today. And he gave me like a full morning to just bliss out and do my thing and drink my coffee and read a book and journal. And I connected with myself and I was feeling really passionate and in my flow. And I was like, you know what? This is the time. I'm going to re-record this episode. And I feel really happy with how it went because this is the vibe that I want to give. This is the vibe that I want you guys to feel from the podcast, where we're literally just chatting over a cup of coffee and we're going so many places. I'm asking you about yourself. You're asking me about myself. We're talking about things that maybe we haven't talked about in a long time. We're able to share our opinions and do it in a really non-judgmental way where we're not coming for each other's throats if we have a differing opinion. And I hope that you guys got that vibe from this. So I'm really looking forward to posting more of these episodes for you guys. They're going to come out every Wednesday on Apple and Spotify. So if you jived with this, then just tune in. I'm going to keep it all under my main Instagram, which is Just Mands with 2 S's because somebody stole Just Mands when I changed my name last year. And it's really annoying because they only have 1 follower, 1 following, and like 0 posts. And I'm sure it's just a really inactive account. And maybe somebody just took it because they thought that I would want it back. Maybe they first saw this happening where I would come back to Just Mands and now I have to pay them for the handle. So if you want to do me a favor today, go and report that account so I don't have to pay them and we can just get it removed so that I can have that account back. It'll happen one day. Even if I do have to pay them $5,000, I will be at a point where I can do that one day. We'll get it back. But for now, it's Just Mands with 2 S's on Instagram and then just.mans on TikTok. I'm not having a love affair with TikTok right now, but I am having a love affair with Instagram. So you can find me there. And then again, you can listen to episodes every Wednesday. I am so happy that you are here and I will see you in the next one.